name's Vince Sheehan and today I'd like to talk about Prelude à l'après-midi d'une faune by Debussy, and I'd like to go through this famous piece looking at how it's structured. I do believe that having some understanding of how a piece of music's put together can keep us engaged while we listen to music, particularly classical music. So this piece was written in 1894, premiered on the 22nd of December of that year, based on the poem by Stéphane Mallarmé, L'après-midi d'une faune, the afternoon of a faun, which is about a faun, you know, from mythology, dreaming these erotic, sensuous, languid reveries about nymphs. And it's a true sea change in orchestral music. Why? Well, because the kind of syntax is completely different from most music of the time. You think around this time you might have the symphonies of Dvorak or Tchaikovsky, Brahms, even Bruckner and Mahler. And then we come to this piece, and it's completely different. It's completely different because it doesn't rely on the age-old tested combination of tonic and dominant, which basically predicates all Western art music from the Baroque period up until that time. You know what that sounds like, that kind of thing. Well, Debussy rejects that. We have a new way of writing music based on what we call the whole tone scale. Where no note is particularly more important than the other. Therefore, that leaves the harmony and the sense of key incredibly ambiguous and vague. And within that whole tone scale, we have the interval known as the tritone, which, as everybody knows, was regarded as something of the devil's interval by the early church. Well, anyway, Debussy uses that tritone relationship, that augmented fourth, in this music as its main building block. And although we do have traditional modulation here and there which mark the different sections of this piece, generally it's very difficult to tell what key we're in at all. It's what you might call atonal in vast stretches of this music. Now we begin with that famous flute solo, which is perhaps in the poem, Mallarmé talks of the vain, sonorous and monotonous line of the flute. And here it is again. Note that we start with C sharp and we go down to G. That's that tritone interval I was talking about a moment ago. Debussy sets out his stall right from this opening melody, which we hear 10 times throughout the piece, with incredibly sophisticated and subtle shadings of texture and harmony every time we hear it. Now, we're supposed to be in E major, that's the key signature of the piece. But then we end up on this, the dominant seventh of the wrong key. We end up on this B flat seventh chord. You hear the horns come in, and you'd expect that to resolve onto B flat. So already Debussy's being very vague and ambiguous about what key we're in, right from the beginning of this piece. And those reiterations of that theme, that sinuous flute theme, make up the A section of this piece. The music cadences into B major, and then we know we've reached a new section of the piece, and here we are in this transition where the tonal centre is very fleeting. It keeps changing key, if you like. And Debussy keeps throwing us these curveballs, taking us away from where we'd expect to go. The music's changeable, and eventually we reach this climax. The violins swell into the texture. And eventually that climax takes us into the B section, where we're now in D flat major, and we have a new melody. Then after that melody stated a few times, we go back to another transition, similar to the first transition between A and B, where the music's more restless, moving through different tonal centres. We hear this idea in that the oboes exploiting those chromatic moves, downwards and upwards. So this continually shifting music eventually brings us back to the opening melody. This time more florid than before. This tune is never the same twice, whether it's the tune itself or the accompaniment. And this final A section then takes us to a brief coda, where we hear this idea in the horns. And we have our last reminiscence of the opening of the Faun's tune. And then we have a series of cadences. Before we have the pizzicato ends, which brings this beautiful and amazingly original and groundbreaking piece of music to a close. Thank you for watching. Please click like and subscribe. The full form of the piece is in the description below. And if you have any suggestions of pieces you'd like me to dissect and look at, please put them in the comments below. Thank you. Bye.